Welcome to the the Node.js benchmarking work group meeting, November 18th, 2016. Sorry, we had a bit of a late start because I had a hard time getting it to the point where I could actually get it to record. So far, we have myself, Michael Dawson, Ali Sheikh, and Gareth Ellis in attendance. I'm going to flip over to the agenda and we'll start walking through that. First on our agenda is basically a stand-up. So I don't know, Gareth, if you want to start first.
Yep. I've not done a massive amount, to be honest, the last couple of months. I've had quite a lot on, so I've not had a chance to look into Node too much. However, I'm a bit more settled now, so hopefully going forward I'll be able to spend a little bit more time doing stuff.
Okay, so busy last few months. We'll start ramping back up. Sorry. Okay, Ali.
Hi. So I'm not sure if people know, VA team has been working on a new interpreter, ignition interpreter, and they've been doing quite a bit of work on this and on the optimization pipeline. So I've been looking at performance and working with the team about the performance of the new interpreter and how it works with Node, and also trying to figure out, looking at Acme Air, how it behaves with some of the things that are coming down the pipe in V8. Also trying to see if we can find some another server-side workload that might actually be a good one to add to our benchmarking suite, other than Acme Air.
Yeah, that would be good. Another benchmark. Okay. Sounds good. You can take a look at the notes to see if I captured everything. So for myself, I updated the benchmarking nightly runs. Sorry, I'm just taking notes at the same time. Which nightly runs to add V7 so that we have numbers for that release as well. Just trying to think what else specific to benchmarking. I am working on a presentation for Node Interactive. So basically, benchmarking workgroup updates. Benchmarking workgroup updates for Node Interactive US. Hopefully drum up some more support. Other than that, I think that's the two main things that I've been doing since we last got together. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, so moving on to agenda items. I thought I pasted these in, but I guess, okay, right, here we go. So actions from last meeting. Basically, Gareth and I just had actions to work on additional benchmarks to fill in the slots in the table where we had gaps. I know that I didn't get a chance to do anything. It sounds like, Gareth, you didn't necessarily either.
No, but hopefully I'll try and get that done in the next couple of weeks, and then we can start getting them run.
Okay. The other thing I'll kind of add on that front is Wayne Andrews, who works with the team here at IBM, is also going to join and start to get involved in helping to fill out some of those and just generally participating in this work as well. He couldn't make it today because it's pretty late in the UK, but hopefully we'll see him next time. Okay, so that is actions from last time. The next things we have on the list, so I'm going to copy that. It's Control-C that. I'm going to put it into the right area so that we can take notes as we go. Okay, so the first one is issue number 70. So I opened an issue which was to solicit feedback from people to say who's still going to be active, because we've got a fairly good number of people listed, but who haven't shown up to any of the meetings or participated in quite a long time. Some of the other work groups have already gone through the process of kind of putting out a call of who's still interested in participating, and then refine the list based on that feedback. So let's just open up. I think as of the last time I looked a few days ago, it looked like the people who had planned to be active, was myself, Ali, Gareth, who were here, and Michael Paulson. And I don't think I'd seen responses from anybody else. Yep, that's still the case. So I guess the question to discuss here is, what do we think we should do on that front? If we don't get responses at all, do we think we should sort of trim down the membership down to the group of people who've responded? How long do we think we need to wait before we do that, and so forth? Anybody have any opinions to add on that front?
Is there a strong motivation to actually trim down the list? I mean, what benefits would it provide?
It's just to make it a little bit clearer of who actually is participating. Like right now, if you go to the main page, there's a number of people who, there's a large number of people whereas the people who you would actually want to contact if there was an issue with something related to the benchmarking is a smaller group. I think in the build work group, there was certainly more of a motivation in terms of the people actually have access to machines and stuff like that. So at this point, we don't have that yet. I am starting to look, I'm starting to consider taking the next step and making our benchmarking machines more open to this group so that other people could, help with the charting and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you were to do that, then I think it would make sense to make sure the people on the list are still current. But at this point, I think those people are not participating, but that's fine. It's not causing any active harm.
Right. I mean, the other approach we can take too is we don't, just because we get access to the benchmarking group doesn't mean we have to immediately give access to everybody, right? It's more of we can give it to people who are part of the working group as opposed to anything else.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know. It sounds like you're thinking we should just leave it as is. I mean,
I guess leaving it as is also has the optics effect of that we're not sort of up to date with the status. So in one way, I can see that as an argument that the list should be current because we're actively looking at things.
Right.
And that's one thing that's not current. So that could be a motivation, but I don't have tremendously strong feelings. But if we do have benchmarking machines that are actually available, that would make more sense to restrict the group.
Right. Gareth, any thoughts or?
I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a shame that there's quite a few people who haven't responded. Because I'm looking at the list. I know Yosuke. I actually spoke to him at Node Interactive, and he was saying that he was hoping to come along to more meetings, but quite often the times didn't match up.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But I say it's a shame that there could well be other people in that list who have the same sort of issue where the times don't match, but they don't let us know that. I guess it's a bit tricky to.
I guess what we could do is we could try and reach out more directly to a number of them.
Yeah, I guess if they've got email addresses on the profiles, perhaps that should be.
Do you have Yosuke's contact info?
I don't think so. No, it was just. No, it was just at one of the sessions at Node Interactive. He introduced himself that he was a member of the benchmarking work group. So,
right.
But no, I mean, I can have a quick check and see if he's on his profile.
There's a few of the other people I can definitely, some of them are IBMers, so I can reach out to them and see what, ask them to answer. So there's no rush here, I don't think.
No.
So I'll try and do that and maybe reach out a little more directly, and we'll see where we get on that front.
Okay. Yeah, having a look at Yusuke's profile, he's got an email address on there. So.
Okay. Maybe since you've talked to him recently, why don't you if you could send him a quick email saying, "Hey, we talked about this.
Yeah.
You still hoping to get involved? Because maybe it would be a good idea to comment here."
Yeah, will do.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, I think that's we'll take those actions, see what happens on that. Any other? So I'm just going to take a few notes on that. Then we can move on. Will. Not respond quite. People need to trim this. Ideally, we could figure out how to get more people just coming back. We try to reach out directly to more to those who have not responded, and review again next week, our next meeting. Okay. So the next issue was number 63. Now I think, so we can talk a bit about that. I think we need Michael Paulson here to close on that one, but let's have a bit of a discussion anyway. Right, so this issue is Michael actually put together a number of micro benchmarks for let constant var. Sort of showing the performance comparisons between those three different ones. I think along the lines of, having the data so that we know which ones to recommend. Part of what he suggested was that we add them to the, the charts that are generated nightly. My question was, they seemed a bit different from the ones which we are charting nightly in terms of they're not necessarily, like a whole. They're not like Acme Air where when it goes down you say, okay, that's a performance regression we need to change. It was more of a comparison between them in terms of the motivation. So I was wondering if that was the right way to keep tracking them. I could see maybe generating jobs, but maybe publishing the data some other way. I don't know what you guys think on that front.
Well, I guess if it's for a comparison, we'd want to make sure that sort of the different versions of Node maintain the same gap, or perhaps that newer versions get faster, I guess. Right. So perhaps maintaining a comparison across the different releases could be potentially beneficial. I do know though that I think one of the reasons for the let constant var was because it was a bug in the V8 optimizer. So perhaps with the new one that Ali was talking about, that may change things quite a bit anyway.
Yeah, I guess, and it's these like comparisons. If we could chart and display everything, that'd be great. But there's a point where you get so much data that you don't know what to do with it. So that's why I was thinking, like, I'm not disputing that this is useful. It's just whether it should be something that's like on the benchmarking.nodejs.org as one of the, like, here's the things to look at sort of day to day.
Yeah, I would agree with that argument. I mean, I'm sure you can take anything on JSPerf and could be a benchmark. I don't think necessarily everything should be displayed as a chart. I think it's important to have it. I mean, it would be interesting to have it somewhere that it's tracked, or you can run and quickly verify performance, but charting might be a bit too much.
Right. So I guess then it's like, what should we do for these other kind of things? Like, we could set up benchmarks job, nightly benchmark job that runs something like this. Now, there's already a whole bunch of micro benchmarks in like the Node.js core runtime, you could almost make the argument for any of those. The challenge there is that they take a long time to run, and there's so much data again that, like, unless somebody's actually looking at them, I'm not sure exactly how it's useful, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's a question of these ones, is there something we should be, it's interesting to have the comparison as a point of time. Is there some ongoing need to, run them every night, compare them, and make that data available somewhere? Is kind of the discussion.
I guess perhaps that you could set some jobs to be run on a less regular basis, maybe, I don't know, once a week, once every couple of weeks, and perhaps have a separate page of charts which they're not exactly headline benchmarks, but
Right.
they're available for somebody to go and check out once every so often, just to make sure something funny hasn't happened that we've missed.
Yeah, so I could see something like that, certainly.
So I think the information, the signal you want is something is 50 times slower.
Right.
Right. So you don't want to track sort of movements, like small movements on these benchmarks, because then you're going to be inundated. But if something is 100 times slower, yeah, that's something we probably should look at some point.
What I'd really like, and I haven't figured out how we get there yet, is like some way that you add up a whole bunch of you add up all the numbers for the small ones, and you track that added number, and if that changes significantly, then you go and look at which thing contributed to that. Now I know that is not easy or to get something that's useful, but that would be something where it would be small enough that you could track it and follow it and know when to investigate, yet then drill down to the nitty-gritty when you needed to.
Well, possibly something like a geometric mean or something like that, may.
Of all the different benchmarks, right?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you were to add new benchmarks to that, then you'd need to reevaluate it. But yeah,
the challenge with these micro benchmarks is going to be that, let's say you pick up the new V8 5.5, and let's say wholly arrays have become faster, but maps have become slower. Your geometric mean is going to be, I don't know, but you do care that if wholly arrays became 10 times slower, you do care. So I don't think it's the aggregate. I think aggregate will lose some information, but large substantial swings in numbers may be interesting to look at independently.
Right, but it's on what numbers? Like, there's so many different benchmarks. I don't know that we can actually measure them all. Or I guess even if that's our long-term goal, we need to prioritize, like, which one should we actually start measuring regularly.
So how about if there's the Node core benchmark suite?
Yeah.
Actually, maybe even that's too big. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't have good answers there.
There are some subsets in there as well. Like in the core benchmark suite, I think it's broken down into like 10 or 15 categories, like HTTP and so forth. Again, those kinds of things, I don't know if like averaging on one of those groups would make any sense either. So I think on this one, I'd like to defer anyway till Michael is, I don't think we should really make a decision one way or the other without him. So maybe sounds like we're all kind of on the same wavelength, but we should get him in discussion. And I think then, he might have some specific ideas as well in terms of why these ones are more important or what we should be just trying to do overall generally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Defer. Okay. Okay. open issue review. So let's take a look at the PRs that are there. And activity since last time. The top one, actually, I didn't really mean to open in this repo, but so it's unrelated. I'll close that out. Running the Octane benchmarks as part of the nightly builds. So there was a recent case where we had floated a patch that actually made V8 much slower in a particular case. And we believe that the Octane benchmarks would have caught that. So from that, it kind of indicates that we should be running Octane. And I don't know if it reports a single number, but try and report that number as one of our charting numbers.
It does report a single number as far as I know.
Okay. So I think just based on that, there's concrete case where we had a regression, we didn't catch it for a long time. Octane would potentially help catch, I think in this case, Octane would have helped us catch that. So we should, say, okay, let's just add that one in. I don't think it should be too hard to run the Octane benchmarks on the patch one, particularly now that we have that separate V8 branch that we pull from. So I'm thinking we should just go ahead on that. Any other thoughts?
No, sounds good. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Date format generated by Acme Air can't be parsed by JavaScript date. So this, they did open. It's actually an issue in Acme Air, so they've opened an issue there, and I just commented that we'll look at updating the Acme Air version once that lands.
I also have a pull request against Acme Air that hasn't been looked at. I opened it several months ago, so might be good to get that landed. Do you know who's maintaining Acme Air upstream?
At one point, I know that. Let's see. Sorry, it's in our list of people. Let me just get there. This is why we gotten her involved in the first place. I know that Yang Li was involved.
Yeah, so there's a small fix. I mean, the workload, if you fetch the latest upstream version, it just doesn't work because there's a URL that's broken.
Okay.
And I have a fix for it in the repo. It just needs to be landed upstream.
Right. Well, maybe if you can ping Yang Li and see if she's still involved. If not, maybe ping me back and I can see if I can find who it is now, if there's somebody else from IBM.
Yeah, okay, I can do that. I did ping you on the issue.
Okay.
I can send over a name as well of somebody I spoke to about Acme Air at IBM.
So Ellie, you said you already pinged Yang on that one?
I opened the issue and I pinged you, Michael.
Okay. I was just saying if you can ping Yang Li, because she was the one who was actively involved last I knew.
Will do.
Okay. Next one, benchmark charts, y-axis offset value. So I noticed, I don't know if this is recent, but I noticed after when I was investigating a particular issue that although the relative positions and sort of, are correct on the charts, the absolute values of the y-axis doesn't seem to be correct. So it correctly shows when node 7 is better than node 6 or vice versa, but the numbers don't line up. So we'll have to investigate why that is. I don't know if it's an artifact of having added new charts or whatever is going on there, but it must be something in that charting package that we're using. The next one is 71, vanilla one. There was quite a long tab, sort of quite a long write-up of his investigation in a particular area around array cloning and array sums. The net at the end was kind of the question. The pending questions will be: will the result be consistent across platforms, and does V8 have some tests similar to this? So I wasn't sure if Acme Air covered that directly, but I pointed them at that. And actually, I guess I pinged you, Ali, just to see if you were aware of any other benchmarks used by the V8 team.
Yeah, so Francisca knows the answer, and she chimed in on the issue.
Okay, so that's Finkel?
Finkel, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think we're good there, unless there's anything else you guys wanted to talk about on that front. We already talked about 70, which is the call for people who are interesting. 69 is our next meeting. There's been some discussion. So 67, there's been some discussion on whether we should enable TCP no delay by default in Node.js. So I agreed to and added in. I did a clone of our Acme Air job where and pointed it at. Well, no, I didn't point it at. I applied, as part of that job, applied a patch that set TCP no delay on, and did some runs and provided data to show before and after on our benchmarking machine. The result seemed to be that it didn't look like it made any difference on Linux. It doesn't really provide confirmation on any of the other platforms, but at least it's a starting point. 65 was add v7 benchmarks and remove 10x. So actually v7 has been added. 10 was not included. So I'm just going to close that one. Complete. Sorry, just going back. Okay. And then I don't think there's been any real comments or traffic on any of the other issues since we last discussed them. So I think we'll call that our open issue review. Where we went through and discussed open issues. That was the end of the agenda, although Ali, I think we want to add in the -- ignition. Is it just -ignition or -- ignition staging?
It's -- ignition
Okay.
staging. And I can open actually an issue for this as well. I have to drop off in 4 minutes. So
yeah, okay, that makes sense for you to do that and put sort of the background and so forth.
Yeah. So this is we team is working on a new optimization pipeline that includes the new ignition interpreter and uses more of the turbofan optimizer. And so this is the ignition staging. This will change going forward, but the exact way it works. But this is intended to be the next shipping configuration sometime next year. So it'd be good to get performance feedback from Node.js. And not just the benchmarking work group, but from the broader community as well on how it performs.
Okay. So I'm just going to add, basically, you'll open an issue to start the discussion. But yeah, I think I'm not sure quite how I would add command line options, but generally it's cloning the job that we have and being able to run in another mode should be relatively straightforward, and that makes good sense to me there. So once you open the issue, we'll start pushing that forward. Okay, so that's what we had on the agenda. Any other things that you guys want to talk to? I know we started late. We're almost at the end of our allotted time, so.
So one thing I actually want to talk about is that, so one thing with Acme that I found, and I don't know if you see this as well, is that actually from a latency point of view, the benchmark or the work that the workload does is really fast. And I don't know if JMeter has reporting that has finer granularity than milliseconds. So looking at the benchmarking data that we have on the website, it seems like we just get one significant digit, which makes it really hard to actually make any statements about latency. Is that something anybody's looked at?
Gareth, I think you would probably know the most about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that the latency number we just get it straight out from what JMeter reports. I can have a look to see if there's any way to get any more accurate numbers out of it.
Yeah, so milliseconds is, I mean, when I run it, it runs in 3 milliseconds. Right. And I've never had a run that hasn't run in 3 milliseconds, even after changing different versions of Node. So, and if it reported, let's say, microseconds, or if there was a slightly different metric. So right now I'm actually looking at the average latency. Perhaps a better number is going to be the, let's say, the 90th percentile or something like that, but I have no idea whether JMeter can produce that or not.
Well, probably. So no, I think the only number that we get out is we get the average latency for a certain period of time, and then we do some maths on that to get the average for all the data points. But yeah, I mean, I can have a look. I'm sure. I mean, JMeter's pretty sort of extensible, so I'm sure there must be some way of getting some perhaps more accurate data out of it. I'll have a look into it anyway, and then I can report back.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I actually have to drop off now.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Cheers.
Okay, so I guess maybe we should call this a day for the meeting this week or this time, and I'll set up another one in say 3 to 4 weeks, or as we can, agree on through Doodle.
Yep. Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thanks for everybody in attendance, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.